Chapter 19. When the Lord thy God hath cut off the nations, whose land the Lord thy God giveth thee, and thou succeedest them, and dwellest in their cities and in their houses, thou shalt separate 3 cities for thee in the midst of thy land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee to possess it. Thou shalt prepare thee a way, and divide the coasts of thy land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee to inherit, into 3 parts, that every slayer may flee thither. And this is the case of the slayer which shall flee thither, that he may live. Whoso killeth his neighbor ignorantly, whom he hated not in time past, as when a man goeth into the wood with his neighbor to hew wood, and his hand fetcheth the stroke with the axe to cut down the tree, and the head slippeth from the helve, and lighteth upon his neighbor that he die. He shall flee unto one of those cities and live, lest the avenger of the blood pursue the slayer while his heart is hot, and overtake him, because the way is long, and slay him, whereas he was not worthy of death, inasmuch as he hated him not in time past. Wherefore I command thee, saying, Thou shalt separate 3 cities for thee. And if the Lord God thy God enlarge thy coast, as he hath sworn unto thy fathers, and give thee all the land which he promised to give unto thy fathers, if thou shalt keep all these commandments to do them, which I command thee this day, to love the Lord thy God, and to walk ever in his ways, then thou shalt add 3 cities more for thee, beside these 3, that innocent blood shall not be shed in thy land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance, and so blood be upon thee. But if any man hate his neighbor, and lie in wait for him, and rise up against him, and smite him mortally that he die, and fleeth into one of these cities, then the elders of his cities shall send and fetch him thence, and deliver him into the hand of the avenger of blood, that he may die. Thine eye shall not pity him, but thou shalt put away the guilt of innocent blood from Israel, that it may go well with thee. Thou shalt not remove thy neighbor's landmark, which they of old time have set in thine inheritance, which thou shalt inherit in the land that the Lord thy God giveth thee to possess it. 1 witness shall not rise up against a man for any iniquity or for any sin, in any sin that he sinneth. At the mouth of 2 witnesses, or at the mouth of 3 witnesses, shall the matter be established. If a false witness rise up against any man to testify against him that which is wrong, then both the men between whom the controversy is shall stand before the Lord, before the priests and the judges, which shall be in those days. And the judges shall make diligent inquisition, and, behold, if the witness be a false witness, and hath testified falsely against his brother, then shall ye do unto him as he had thought to have done unto his brother. So shall ye put away the evil from among you. And those which remain shall hear and fear, and shall henceforth commit no more any such evil among you. And thine eye shall not pity, but life shall go for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. We have dealt with the cities of refuge before. You may not remember, but basically when Gad, Reuben, and half of Manasseh, the tribe of Manasseh, decided they wanted to stay on the east side of the Jordan River because it was great grassland and they had lots of cattle, that the Lord advised Moses to set aside 3 towns on the east side for refuge for them, so that anybody who had innocently killed somebody else basically had a place to flee to, and then the slayer would not be able to go and do it. But here it basically outlines that if they believed that there was a hatred between the individuals, that the city that the man lived in, and where usually the avenger would be, would have the right to send and get him and have him taken out and brought back to the city where he was normally resident, and they would determine what the guilt or innocence was, and if he was guilty, then he would be put to death. And so the city of refuge didn't avail anything to anybody who was unrighteous or had actually killed somebody because they wanted to. It was only there in case there was an accident. And then you need to understand, they had no judicial system. They didn't, in the sense of having lawyers and defenders and a court system where somebody could go and be presumed innocent until found guilty, all kinds of other things. Some member of the family would have been self-appointed as a slayer, and they would have gone looking for this person. So the only chance the person had of actually being safe and alive was go to one of these cities and then they could determine what the situation was. And under certain circumstances, a certain person that could leave and come into the place, the town and community where they had lived. But most of the time, they would have to live in these cities of refuge for the rest of their lives. Because if the slayer found them, the family member who was sort of self-appointed or was the oldest male or whatever, found them, he could kill them. And that's exactly what happened numerous times. Now, one last thing to remind you of here was that if a man bore false witness, in other words, if somebody had said such and such a person stole my ox or whatever, or they harmed me in such and such a way, and I've got this damage done to me or to somebody else or whatever, and it turned out to be untrue, then it was the responsibility of the judges to see to it that whatever punishment had been meted out to the person they had lied about, they suffered. So if they'd caused a person to be killed, chances are they would be killed. If they had caused that person to have some other kind of damage done to them, the same thing would be done to them. This was a very good way of dealing with it. It didn't prevent anything, except the person who gave the false testimony knew that if they'd been caught, there was big trouble for them. But if they weren't caught, well, maybe they could get away with it. But it's amazing how the Lord has a tendency to open up doors and let people get caught if they do something wrong.